What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co host, Eric Wilson. And Alexis Lafreniere has still not received his contract extension. He is still a restricted free agent for this upcoming season, or this offseason, rather. So we want to go ahead and discuss today what will his future contract look like. The Rangers, they seem like they want to re-sign Alexis Lafreniere, though there have been some rumors of a potential trade. I don't think a trade's going to happen, but we're going to discuss the possibility of a trade and, of course, discuss the possibility of a contract extension and what that will look like in today's episode. But before we do all that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Fireside Rangers. And yeah, without further ado, Eric, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on Alexis Lafreniere still not getting a contract extension at this point in the offseason?
I'm doing good, and the fact that Lafreniere hasn't gotten a contract yet, it's a little concerning, because like you mentioned, there are speculations of a trade. There are a number of teams that are interested in acquiring him. So it could be that Chris Drury and the Rangers are kind of just holding off a little bit, listening to some offers maybe, or it could just be that Lafreniere and his agent just want more money than we have to offer. But I don't really know. I don't really see Lafreniere making too much money on his first contract after his entry level one. But I don't know. Overall, I like Lafreniere. I think he's a good player who has a lot of potential. He hasn't really shined that much in the NHL so far, but just like he has these little bursts of energy where I'm like, this is like the type of player that a first overall player should be like. And then he kind of just disappears, throughout his career so far. In 216 games, only 91 points. It's not bad. It's solid. But for a first overall pick, you kind of expect a little more, especially just this playoffs, 7 games played, 0 points. It's like, come on. So he really needs to get things going in this next contract, whether it be with the Rangers or any team that acquires him.
Yeah, I think that 2023 playoff stat line is the most damning thing going against Alexis Lafreniere. 7 games played, 0 points. It's quite a struggle when you have, the kid line, right? The Rangers were really relying on the kid line to step up and play big time in the postseason. And Alexis Lafreniere really just didn't show up. He didn't elevate his game to the level of the postseason. 0 points in those 7 games. Pretty impactful in a very negative sense for the Rangers. And you could definitely place a fair bit of blame on Lafreniere for the Rangers not making it far into the postseason. But contextually speaking, when we're talking about this Alexis Lafreniere contract, it's also important to bring up K'Andre Miller because he just signed a 2-year contract with $3.875 million per year average annual value. So you want to look at that comparatively speaking to Alexis Lafreniere and say how much more or less is Alexis Lafreniere worth compared to K'Andre Miller? And I think we're going to find a pretty easy answer there. He is worth significantly less than K'Andre Miller, considering how uncertain his future is and how inconsistent he's been throughout the first few seasons of his career. So, Eric, when you're looking at the Miller contract, 2 years, 3.875 AAV, not a bad deal by any means whatsoever. But compared to what you think Alexis Lafreniere is going to make, how far underneath that 3.875 do you think the Rangers are going to be willing to pay Alexis Lafreniere?
I mean, I think a fair amount. I think the K'Andre Miller deal that the Rangers just made is the best deal that they could have made in our current situation. We don't have that much cap left going into it. I always kind of just assumed that both K'Andre Miller and Lafreniere were going to get kind of short-term bridge deals. Um, and that's kind of what Miller got, just 2 years, 3.875 million. In my mind, I was like anything under 4 would be a good deal. So I'm kind of thinking the same thing with Lafreniere, where we're not going to see a very long-term contract. It's probably only going to be a 2-year bridge deal again. And I'm going to go the same thing. Anything under 2 million, I think would be a good deal. We have only 2.3 left to work with for the rest of the offseason after all of the different 1-year veteran signings we've made. So I think just like a 2x2, 2-year, 2 million would be, I think, good for both parties. Maybe like a 2-year, 1.7 million if we're lucky, somewhere in that range, and I'd be content. But if we just go and use the entire 2.3 million remaining on Lafreniere, I think that's a little bit of an overpay considering somewhat of a lack of point production.
Yeah, I mean, they've got 2.3 million left in salary cap space. And so if Lafreniere is seeking a deal exceeding 2 million AAV, I don't think the Rangers can do it, and I think they'll be forced to trade him, and we'll dive into that in a second. But if I give my contract projection here for Alexis Lafreniere, I think you have to say the maximum the Rangers can do is 2 million AAV, right? But that only leaves them with 300,000 in salary cap space going into the season. That's pretty bad. That's like dangerous because if you have any injuries or you have to move people up or down into the developmental leagues, you got to adjust your cap space for those types of changes to your roster. And the Rangers leaving themselves with 300,000 in salary cap space probably wouldn't be a good idea. Now you get it up to about 500,000 in salary space by signing Lafreniere to a 1.8 AAV. I think that's more realistic and that's possible. I think that 1.8 per year for 2 years, that's what is going to be the final numbers on Alexis Lafreniere's contract is my personal projection. But we'll see. The Rangers might be forced to bring that number up to 2 million. But again, if it starts to exceed 2 million, Eric, I think you kind of get put into a situation. The Rangers get put into a box and they might be forced to trade Alexis Lafreniere just because they can't afford to pay him. You look at the salary cap that the Rangers have, or the salary that the Rangers have, rather, and they have some really big numbers on their payroll. Adam Fox with 9.5 million, Artemi Panarin with 11.6 million. We know that Trocheck is here for 5.6 all the way through 2029. There is some big time money being spent by the Rangers right now, and I don't think that they can afford to sign Alexis Lafreniere to a long-term deal by any means. And also, I don't think he would want one just because he still has something left to prove and maybe cash in on another deal down the road. But when I look back at that Capo Caco contract that he signed last offseason, that bridge deal, that's what I think makes sense for Alexis Lafreniere. However, Caco, better player at that point than Lafreniere is at this point in my eyes. So I don't think that I'd be able to bring the price point up to that Caco standard. So for me, Eric, I'm going 1.8 million AAV over 2 years. But what is your official contract projection for Alexis Lafreniere?
Um, See, 1.8, like I don't want to just like agree with you. That's a very good take though. You also just got to consider, despite throughout this year's playoffs having 0 points in 7 games, he did have 39 points through 81 games in the 2023 regular season. That's not a terrible number at all. That's just like a solid NHL player. So I think it's realistic the Rangers could just bump it up to a 2x2, but I'll meet you somewhere in the middle and just say 1.9 over 2 years.
Yeah, so all right, let's dive into the alternate scenario though, right? Like if they can't get 1.8 or 1.9 to work, and Lafreniere's like, I want 2.5. I won't play for anything less than 2.5. Well, the Rangers only have 2.3 in space. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to have to trade him, right? So what do you think the Rangers could get in return for Alexis Lafreniere? And do you think that this is a situation that could realistically result in a trade with the Rangers still having no deal in place with Lafreniere?
I think it definitely could result in a trade. I think the Rangers would be foolish to turn to that, though. I think we need to give Lafreniere his money as much as we can. Because it's just so many times where you see the Rangers have these young guys, we develop them really poorly, then they don't want to play for us anymore, so they go somewhere else and just become superstars. Um, and I fear that what might happen with Lafreniere, where throughout his career so far, he's played 3 full seasons. One of them was shortened by COVID, but it's whatever. And like I said, he's shown a lot of potential. He's put up some like decent point stats, but he hasn't really had the opportunity to fully break out because he's been down in the bottom six like his entire career. So if he were to just go to another team, like get traded somewhere and get top 6 minutes, he's going to break out and he's going to put up a lot of points. So if the Rangers are to look at a trade, they don't need to like really look at what he's done so far. They really need to value what he's going to do elsewhere. So if we're going to trade him, I think he would need to be replaced by another top 6 level, fully established NHL forward already. Where I don't want to go and trade him for draft picks, even if it's like a first rounder. We're in the win now window, and we would need someone who I want to be playing 82 games for the Rangers next season. So, like, I don't even know what teams are interested in anymore. The rumors are kind of all over the place. I know the Canucks were one of the teams that were interested. So if the Rangers would have put in a deal with Vancouver, I know they have a lot of young, talented forwards that the Rangers could probably look at, maybe like Bo Horvat, Brock Besser. I doubt the Canucks would ever entertain that. But as a Rangers fan who sees the potential in Lafreniere and who's been watching him his entire career, if we're going to trade him, it needs to be for a big name player who's going to make an immediate impact on the Rangers.
Yeah, I think that is necessary, and that kind of leads into the next topic that I wanted to discuss is what would Alexis Lafreniere's role be on the lines this upcoming season? And if he wasn't with the team, they'd have to trade for a player who, in my opinion, needs to compete in the top six. But Lafreniere, Eric, do you think that he was going to, or he is going to be playing in the top six for the Rangers? Because I'm looking at some of these line combinations online. Some of these websites still have him down in the bottom six, playing left winger on the third line. But we've talked about the kid line quite a bit this offseason, at the end of the regular season and postseason. The kid line has been a hot topic for all Rangers fans. We've discussed that Capo Caco needs to be up in the top six, probably on the first line to really take that next step. And we've also felt similarly about Alexis Lafreniere and sometimes Philip Hedl as well. It's time to get these guys into the top six. Now, Heedle's probably going to be buried down on that third line because of the depth that the Rangers have at the top of their lines at the center spot. But on the wing position, Lafreniere, left wing, probably down on that third line. But if he plays right wing, maybe he can move up to the second line. I don't know. So what are your thoughts on that? And then how does that tie into if the Rangers do trade him? They do have to get a player that can compete in the top six, right?
Yeah. So I know we had a lot of speculation about potentially having Lafreniere swap over to the right side to give him top 6 minutes because we had those two openings with both Kane and Tarasenko like all but confirmed not going to be on the Rangers anymore. But then now it's kind of looking like Capo Caco is going to take that first line spot over there on the right wing. And then the Rangers went out and signed Blake Wheeler, and Blake Wheeler is still like a decently established NHL forward. So like I think the Rangers are pretty much all but confirmed again going to give that second top six spot to Blake Wheeler for now. But then again, Wheeler's old. He's regressing. He still put up like 55 points last season, but who knows what he's going to do this season. So I think to start off, at least, we'll see him there. And I think to start the season off, we're still going to see Lafreniere down on that third line, left wing spot. Maybe at some point throughout the season, we could see it switch around where, Chris Kreider, the last 2 seasons, he's been incredible, but he's also one of those like consistently inconsistent players where Kreider will go on like a 2 week span where he's scoring 2 goals a game and then he'll disappear for 2 months. So maybe at some point we can see Kreider get bumped down to the third line for a little bit, give Lafreniere a little bit of that top six playing time. So it's a little up in the air. The Rangers are one of those interesting teams that kind of just move things around maybe a little more than they should. But I think to start the season off, Lafreniere, assuming he's still with the Rangers, might still be getting that third line ice time.
Yeah, I think so as well, but I'd like to see him try and push his way up into the top six, but it is going to be tough. I mean, on the left wing, you've got Kreider, you've got Panarin, so whose playing time is he still in there? Probably neither of those guys. But on the right side, I think Blake Wheeler, that's kind of your weak spot in the top six anyway, at the right wing spot. Lafreniere maybe switches over to the other side and moves up into the top six at right wing, but it's, again, as you mentioned, that's going to be tough for him to do. It's really going to be tough for him to move up into the top six here. But we kind of need him to, I think. I think he needs more ice time. I think he needs to start playing in the top six. That's the only way he's going to take that big step forward that we know he needs to take. So Lafreniere, it might be best for both parties if they do trade him, potentially. He needs a top six ice time. Rangers maybe can't give it to him. Rangers also kind of can't afford him. Maybe there is an inevitability here where Lafreniere is on his way out. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I do think they will get a deal done. Again, I think 2 years, 1.8 million per year for the next 2 years makes sense for Lafreniere. I think it's a number that the Rangers can feasibly offer, and I think it's one that Lafreniere will probably have to accept and just play through it for the next couple of seasons and then cash in with a big payday 2 years from now, which is, again, same strategy that Capo Caco is doing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Hopefully they get a deal done sooner than later, and of course, when they do, we will be updating you on it right here on Fireside Rangers. So make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at Fireside Rangers. And without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go
Let's go.
Rangers.